Boom. Hello, everybody. Hello. Going live on TikTok right now as well. Making myself a little less orange on TikTok. That's always fun. Go live. There we go. Hey, everybody. Woo. Yep. Hey, TikTokers. I always like to see who the first TikToker is who comes in. It's always kind of fun to call them out. Let's see who the first TikToker is. And YouTube folks, you're already there. Ella, you're the first person on TikTok. Woo! Thanks for joining us. Deeply concerned, the rest of you. And YouTube folks, welcome. We usually wait a minute to jump in before I get into the substance, just to let people join in. Thanks for joining us today, guys. Why don't you maybe introduce where you're all from? I always kind of enjoy that. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Good evening, maybe. I will get to that, whether Ukraine will win, hopefully very shortly. Where's my pen? Here's my pen. I'm actually going to write that one down. Will Ukraine win? Somebody asked at the beginning. We will get to questions in a bit. Will Ukraine win? That way I'll remember that one, since you were the first one to ask it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We're giving it another minute. Like I said, say where you're all from. London, Ireland, lovely. And hopefully New Zealand, excellent. I'm hoping we're able to get a few more folks not from America because, well, we love America. but it's always nice when we can do these a little bit earlier on the weekends so that hopefully folks, Norway, wonderful. I hear you're wonderful NATO partners, by the way, Norway. A friend of mine who was former NATO official, we were talking the other day. They said, oh my God, the Norwegians, boy, are they fighters. So very impressed with you guys, especially your winter fighting. Hey guys, TikTok folks are slowly coming in. Hey, TikTok folks. Finland, excellent. We're all Sweden, Slovenia. This is nice. We do have Scotland. We do have a nice mix today. Wow, excellent. We usually just take this first minute and have folks kind of weigh in where they're from, just because I think it's kind of nice for people to sort of see everybody else. So, hello. This is great. We've got a great international crowd. See, this is what happens when we do this at a more reasonable time. During the week, we typically do these at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., which is Washington, D.C. time where I live. That is Washington, D.C., which is getting a little colder when it shouldn't be out there. But on the weekends, we do it a little earlier so we can get all of you guys involved, which is nice. I am got a decent amount of news today, some good, some bad. I will start, as I always do, by saying make sure you follow me on TikTok, please, and on YouTube and on Facebook and everywhere else you're watching. Also, make sure you follow your other creators because it's important for them too. So thank you. And thank you, Rusty, for that. On TikTok, I just the other day figured out the questions feature. So if you submit your questions on TikTok in the actual questions feature, I can pull them up and I can highlight them on the screen so everybody can see them. On YouTube, you guys can scroll in the comments, obviously, if you want to support my work and guarantee that I see your question and read it. If you can do a super question, that would be better. Well, it supports me too, which I appreciate. But the super questions on YouTube allow you guys to highlight the question. You pay something for it. I don't know. They figure it out. It's the little $sign at the bottom of the comment section in YouTube. You can touch it now. It's not going to do anything. Don't worry. But it'll show you the super questions. And the super stickers are simply like the fun things that we can do on TikTok when you can make funny balloons pop up and everything else. And frankly, it's a nice way to support my work again because I get a cut. YouTube gets a cut. It's very nice. So thank you all. See, somebody just did the origami on TikTok. Thank you for that. All right, guys, I'm going to jump right in. And again, all your gifts are appreciated. I try to acknowledge them when they come in, but sometimes it's hard. Thank you for the roses. Let's jump right in. So the top story today, there's a lot of subsets to it, though, is still President Biden in Eastern Europe. My favorite hat. President Biden in Eastern Europe. He's in Poland today. He met with the Polish President Duda. Who, interestingly, we've had a weird relationship with Poland recently because the Polish president is a bit not as pro-democracy as we might like and very conservative in, a way that isn't great on civil rights and things. Nonetheless, he has proven to be a stalwart ally in the battle to defend Ukraine. And obviously, we're all very thankful for that. And, we've all got to work together on this one. President Biden met with Duda. He also had a surprise meeting with the Ukrainian defense and foreign ministers who were in Poland. And I think it's pretty much a guarantee that Biden dropped in the meeting. It was obviously planned. All of them had planned to meet. So that was, I think, good for Biden to meet him. And finally, Biden also met with a number of Ukrainian refugees today. Some really moving video of him meeting with these young children. One thing that I found very interesting from that was apparently a number of the Ukrainian children went to Biden and said to him, "Would you please pray for my parents and my grandparents who are back in Ukraine?" Now, thank you, Lindsay, by the way, for that. What is interesting about that is Biden is Catholic, and he is a very staunch Catholic. His religion is very important to him. Richard, thank you for that too. Very important to him. So getting children to come up to Biden and say, "Oh, hang on. Oh, almost got rid of him." Exactly. Oh, and for the moderators, when somebody jumps in and writes "Ura," U-R-A, that's actually a Russian troll being obnoxious. It's the rallying cry the Russians use for their military, like "woo woo." So when you see somebody write "URA" or "URAA," block them right away and know that you just got rid of a paid Russian disinformation agent. So congratulations. And I think my mod on TikTok did it without me even asking. So God bless you. So, but so interesting. So these kids were saying to Biden, who's a staunch Catholic, "Please pray for my parents and my grandparents back in Ukraine." I heard that and I immediately heard somebody planned this, knowing that Biden is super religious and super Catholic, and knowing Biden has this very empathetic human side to him where people suffering he relates to because of his background, losing his wife and daughter, I think it was, in an auto accident years ago, and then losing his son to cancer a few years ago. So they were trying to get Biden, by bringing in the religious side, about having him pray for their families, to woo him a little bit more, which I thought was a very smart, interesting, strategic move. Now, after the meeting with Ukrainian refugees, Biden made a little news, and I'm going to explain why I think this matters. And that's, thank you for that, Hart. One of the things I try to do with these broadcasts is give you guys, from my perspective as somebody who's worked in Washington, D.C. in U.S. politics for 30 years now, or more than 30 years now, is trying to give you the news, but trying to explain to you what matters and why. So this is interesting. Biden was asked what he thought of here he goes. He was asked of Mr. Putin and of what has happened in Mariupol. Mariupol is that town in southern Ukraine where the Russians are just destroying everything. They bombed the theater that had the women and children inside. Remember, it had children written on the outside. The Russians they bombed the maternity ward in this town. Horrible things the Russians have done. Biden was asked, what do you have to say of that? And he says in reply, Biden does, about Putin, he's a butcher. A butcher. And a butcher, for any of you guys who maybe newer to English, is the man who chops up the animals, to give you meat at the store, but meaning somebody who chops people up with a knife. Just horrible. What is interesting to me is, and I've said this in a previous broadcast, remember we talked a couple days ago about how the White House had finally said that officially the U.S. government said that Putin had committed war crimes in Ukraine. And I said how that was actually a very interesting shift, because a couple days before that, and actually, Ryan, I know the Marines say hoorah, but the Russians say ura, U-R-A. So when you see U-R-A, it's the Russians, just so you know. So a couple days before the U.S. said, yes, the Russians committed war crimes, the U.S. said President Biden personally believes the Russians committed war crimes. But we didn't say the U.S. government believes. We said Biden personally believes. Then a week before that, so going back about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine puts out a tweet on Twitter, a quick little message, that accused the Russians of war crimes. Well, the U.S. government got very upset. They told all our other embassies, don't spread that message. And when they were asked about it here in Washington, they kind of backed off and they wouldn't use the phrase war crimes. So we've gone from the U.S. not calling this war crimes at all to saying Biden personally believes it's a war crime, to just a few days ago, the U.S. government officially declares these to be war crimes, to now Biden calling Putin a butcher. To me, that's interesting, because the evolving language is is indicative of an intentional change in U.S. policy. These things matter in diplomacy, and to somebody like Joe Biden, who is a foreign policy expert, remember that's Biden's number one expertise, working in the U.S. Senate, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, the committee in the U.S. Senate that is in charge of foreign relations, very powerful committee. Biden knows his foreign relations. When Biden's language switches like that, it indicates that Biden is getting more, I don't want to say more strict, more angry, more concerned about Putin, and that he's feeling like diplomacy has less and less of a chance. Now, what does that mean in terms of policy? Let's see. But, we know Biden does not want to get the U.S. involved and does not want to get NATO involved in a shooting war with Russia because he's afraid it would go nuclear, it'd be World War III, etc. But Biden's language getting much more strict like this, much more stern against Russia, says to me at least he's going to be putting more pressure internationally, maybe on the oil purchases, but on our allies to do more. It also says to me that Biden himself, I think, you may be seeing a personal change in Biden. And again, I think this is his Christian side, so to speak, which is very strong in him, that he's starting to get very upset about this and taking it personally. Calling Putin a thug and a butcher is, anyway, it's very interesting to me. The final point I'll make about that, and then I'll move on, is I also think it almost puts Biden in his own box, because by calling Putin a butcher, it makes it difficult to step down later, right? If he's a butcher and he's a war criminal, he's going to have to do certain things before we normalize relations again with Putin. So that's going to be a very interesting, I think it almost, I don't want to say it puts us in a box, but it puts Biden in a position where later on, if the West tries to normalize relations with Putin, we can hold Biden accountable and say, look, you said the man was a butcher and a war criminal. So anyway, the changing in language is important in diplomacy, and it's something to keep an eye on. Also today, the Russians hit the Ukrainian town of Lviv, which is in western Ukraine near the Polish border. And Biden was across the border, but he was several hundred miles away, several hundred kilometers away. So he wasn't close. But nonetheless, it seems clear to me that the Russians hit Lviv, which is right near Poland, at the same time Biden is in Poland near the border, or near-ish the border, again, a couple hundred miles, in order to send some kind of a tough guy message. So Putin was playing a little bit of a game there. I don't think Biden cares, frankly, that Putin, sent the bombs. I mean, it's not like Biden was scared, but nonetheless, Putin's playing some psychological games. Now, let me get a sip of coffee. I didn't have my second cup yet this morning, so normally I have water. Today I have coffee in this is my Chicago Starbucks mug. One moment. I usually do my second cup earlier in the day, but today I started late. So yesterday's big news, and it's still relevant to today with what's going on. Yesterday's big news was that the Russians had basically, I want to say, kind of admitted they lost the first phase of the war. What the Russians did is the defense ministry came out and said, we won the first phase. The first phase of the war is over, and now we're going to phase two. Well, phase one of the war was actually the Russians trying to take the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. And they also were trying to take Ukraine's second city of 1.5 million people, Kharkiv, which is in the northeast of Ukraine near the Russian border. Well, what happened was the Russians did not take Kyiv and Kharkiv. The Russians did not take Kyiv in 3 to 4 days, which is what they kept telling their troops. Oh, in 4 days we'll be in Kyiv and the war will be over. We are now 1 month into this war. Clearly it didn't work. And what we're seeing is the Ukrainians are starting to push the Russians back in the north of Kyiv. They're starting to push the Russians further away. I mentioned this last night. Ukrainians have done a brilliant job here. First of all, they destroyed the Russian supply lines. Remember that convoy, that 40-mile long convoy that everybody was worried about, that was coming down from Russia and was coming down to Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine in the north? Well, that 40 miles of trucks with fuel and ammunition and weapons and food and water for the troops, well, that thing got stopped by the Ukrainians. It never went anywhere. It's still there. Pretty much, I'm sure it's been destroyed and looted by now. The troops have all left. It's a truck graveyard of Russian trucks and Russian tanks at this point. The Ukrainians did such a good job of stopping it. At the same time, the Ukrainians did something with their dam north of Kyiv, the capital, a water dam, and they flooded the land. So the land north of Kyiv now that has 10,000 Russian troops, thank you for the hat, is flooded. The troops can't go anywhere. Their tanks and trucks really can't go anywhere because literally it's a flood. And 10,000 Russian troops have now been surrounded in the northern suburbs of Kyiv, the capital. And what our military experts are saying is that these Russian troops could very well be on the verge of either being captured or destroyed in the next week. And again, these troops don't have resupplies because the Ukrainians destroyed that convoy and have cut off all the other convoys. It's very interesting. So they're not getting water, they're not getting food, they're not getting weapons, they're not getting fuel. So their trucks and their tanks are stuck. What happened? So as a result of this gets us to yesterday. As a result of this, the Russians are now changing things and going, oh my God, we never wanted to take Kyiv, the capital. No. We were just pretending for a month. Thank you for that on TikTok, by the way. We were just pretending for a month. So now the Russians are saying that first month, just forget about it. I know the Russians lost 15,000 troops. Just forget about it. We lost a lot of tanks. We lost a lot of planes. Let's just pretend that didn't happen. The real goal of the war is to take eastern Ukraine. Now, what's going on in eastern Ukraine? Eastern Ukraine, an area called Donbass, basically, if you look at the map of Ukraine on the east, you'll see Russia, right? You'll see a town called Luhansk. And if you go down along the Ukrainian border, down to the Black Sea, you'll see another town, like we said, Mariupol. Well, that whole area from Luhansk to Donetsk to Mariupol is this eastern area of Ukraine that the Russians have been wanting to annex for a long time. And they've been fomenting basically an insurrection there. They've been paying basically terrorists to blow things up, and they've even taken some of the land. The insurrectionists, the terrorists, have even taken control of some of the land. Well, the Russians want to make that part of Russia. And in 2014, they came in and they already made part of Russia Crimea. The land, there's a peninsula in the south. Again, if you look at the map of Ukraine, you'll see in the south, there's a big chunk of land that goes down into the Black Sea. It's called Crimea. The Russians stole that in 2014 and made it Russia. No one recognizes that it's Russia because it's not. But what they want to do now is so they got Crimea in the south. They want to steal that area in the east. And then they want to steal some land connecting the two, which is why you get into these towns like Mariupol, even Kherson, which is more over here by Odessa. But a lot of the battle towns we're hearing about in the south that the Russians are destroying, blowing up these theaters with kids in them and everything else, are these towns that Russia's trying to take so it can have a connection from Crimea all the way to Russia. Well, now, because of all this trouble the Russians are having, they're claiming, oh, that was always our intent to start with. We just want to take eastern Ukraine, annex it, and get this line to Crimea. Now, we always knew that was one of the Russians' goals, but it wasn't the only goal. They clearly were going to take, if not all of Ukraine, they were going to take Kyiv, the capital. They were going to take Kharkiv. They were going to take a lot of towns. I think potentially they were going to take half of Ukraine. Because if you look at Kyiv, the capital, down the middle, there's a river that goes down there. And the thought was, would they have taken everything east of that river, which is like half the country? Anyway, Russia's doing so badly that now they've had to admit that their initial plan was wrong and they're only going for the east. Now, what the experts are saying, and then I'll move on after this, what the experts are saying is we should not think the war is over, and just because Russia did a terrible job trying to take the Ukrainian capital, that they're going to win, that the Ukrainians are going to win somehow. The Russians still have a lot of weapons. They've got a lot of missiles. They will do they'll do a very good job killing civilians, which is what they do, and they do it on purpose, and they're going to keep doing it. And this eastern region they want, right? The eastern region the Russians want to steal from Ukraine, there are a lot of very seasoned Russian fighters there already because they've been helping these people in a civil war or create a civil war for, God, more than 8 years now, right? So the war is going to intensify even more in this eastern region. But you know what? Good news is good news. The Ukrainians have been fighting back. They've had some significant battles, and this is very good. No, I think this is pretty good what's going on. There was more nuclear war BS out of Russia today. I'm going to tell you about it, but I'm going to thank you for the hat. I'm going to tell you about it, but I'm also going to tell you why you shouldn't worry. And I've got a little more. Well, I've got a little more news, some sad news coming up, and then we'll do our question and answer period. So Medvedev, I can never pronounce his name, Medvedev, who is former Russian president, initially was seen as a counterpoint to Putin and now is just a puppet of Putin's, said today that he was talking about nuclear weapons. And he said, let me quote the article. Mr. Medved also noted that, as laid out in Russia's established policy on nuclear deterrence, Russia could use nuclear weapons in response to an attack on Russia or its allies with conventional weapons if the very existence of Russia is threatened. And that's supposed to scare everybody, but it's also nothing new. From the beginning of time, Russia's nuclear doctrine said if the existence of Russia is threatened, they can use nuclear weapons. I know, Medvedev, I will never get that right, Casey. They could use nuclear weapons. And the issue is, duh. I mean, this is not new and it's not a threat. We had this with the Russians and with the Soviets before them forever. Our nuclear policy and the Russian nuclear policy has always been one of mutually assured destruction, that we mutually knew we could destroy each other and therefore neither of us would do it, right? So what the Russians are now doing is trying to scare people by talking nuclear war when all they really said is if America and the West came in and so destroyed Russia that it looks like we were about to take over the entire country of Russia and annex it as part of America, then they would launch nuclear weapons. And I hear something like that and I go, duh. I mean, this is why when people bring up the nuclear threat, I am a little less freaked out than some people because I hear BS coming out of the Russians. I hear the Russians trying to psych us out. And I hear statements like this that are from Medvedev that are trying to sound like they're scary, but they're actually a statement of the obvious that has always been the case, and it's nothing new. It's not a new threat. So, like I said, I've got two nasty stories of Russian atrocities, and then I'm ending with one very good story. So that's at least a good thing. So the two nasty stories. The BBC has taken some video that I saw a couple days ago, but they've analyzed it. They've gotten the experts to look at it. They've identified the people. And basically, this man, this Ukrainian man, looks like he's 30 years old, Maxim Iovenko. And he and his wife, Zhenya, their 6-year-old boy, and a neighbor's mother as well, were in a car trying to leave the area of Kyiv, the Russian capital, because the Russians were coming in, right? And they're in their car leaving. They've got friends in other cars. They're driving on the highway. And there's video of this. Somebody had gotten, I think, drone video because they just happened to be, well, let me tell you, actually, the reason they got the drone video is because these cars start coming down the highway and there's a Russian tank about 100 feet in front of them. Well, the drone was looking at the Russian tank. So the cars come up. The Russians fire on the cars. Both cars kind of turn around because they're not going to come at a tank firing at them. Maxim's car stalls because the Russians hit the engine. And you see in the video, and we know the story now because somebody else who was there tells us the rest of the story. Maxim, he's in his car with his wife and his 6-year-old child and a neighbor's mom. The car is dead. The Russian tank is 100 feet in front of them and clearly had fired at them. They get out of the car. He puts his hand, and you see in the video from the drone, he's got his hands in the air and is looking at the Russians. They shoot him dead. They shoot his wife dead. And then they come and take the child, the 6-year-old child whose parents have now been killed in front of him, and the neighbor hostage for a while and finally let them go. I mean, horrific. The second horrific story, and I put this one up on TikTok as well, and I'm sorry, these are nasty stories, but it's important to know the bad stories because they should be shared. First of all, these people like Maxim, people should know him. They should know his name. They should know his story. He shouldn't have died in vain. And people need to know how bad it is what the Russians are doing there. So the second story was in a town called Bucha, or Bucha, depending. It's funny. I usually have to go on Wikipedia and I Google the town and then look at the Ukrainian spelling because I had studied Russian for a year, so I more or less can pronounce it if I see it in the Ukrainian language, because in English, you never know, is it Bucha, Bucha? This is the area in the north now, north of Kyiv, the capital, where the Russians are having a very hard time, where the Ukrainians are starting to push back. Well, several days ago, I want to say 2 weeks ago from the article I saw, but these stories are just coming out because these areas were occupied by the Russians. The stories weren't getting out. 9-year-old boy, Yura, 9th grade boy, Yura, teenager, I'm going to guess 13 or 14 years old. In the video I put on TikTok, he's very young. He looks like he's 13 or 14 at best, 9th grade. His father turns to him and says, Yura, do you want to come with me? I'm going to go to the local humanitarian aid depot and get some medicine. We need medicine. Because in a lot of these towns now, the stores aren't operating. I mean, it's dangerous to even go there. They don't even have money, because their credit cards don't work. So there's been humanitarian aid areas set up to give people food and money and stuff like this. So Yura says to Dad, sure, why not? It's safe. The Russians are in town, but it's safe. They walk up the street, and all of a sudden they see a Russian checkpoint. Russian soldiers. The dad and Yura, and now Yura, the son, is being interviewed by the BBC here. Excuse me, not BBC. This story is Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, being interviewed by Radio Free Europe. And Yura says, immediately, we both put up our hands because we know with the Russians, we put up our hands. My dad says to them, we have no weapons. We don't want any trouble. We're simply going to buy medicine. The Russian soldier turns, and this is now a 13-year-old boy telling this story. I mean, it's horrible to watch this poor kid. Both have their hands up in the air. The father says, we have no weapons. We just want to buy medicine. The Russian soldier turns, shoots the father twice in the heart. The father screams, drops dead, turns to the boy, shoot him. The first shot goes through the boy's arm, and he shows it, and you can see the bullet wound through his arm. The boy falls to the ground, and he's got a black hoodie on. The hoodies, like a sweatshirt with the top, right? He's got the black hood on. He falls on the ground, and because the hood is so big, it makes his head look bigger. The Russian turns to him and shoots at his head to kill him, the boy. Shoots at his head. Well, the bullet goes through the hat, but because the hoodie was a little big, instead of it hitting his head, it hit the hat, misses the boy's head. The Russian then turns, shoots one more shot at the father to make sure he's dead, and leaves. The boy then waited a minute, he said he knew his father was dead. Imagine this too, like you just know your father's dead. Got up, ran home to his mother, told her, and I mean, the video goes on. I put a snippet of the video on TikTok. You guys can also Google it. I mean, the YouTube folks, just Google it. Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and Google Yura. Y-U-R-A is the boy's name. Horrific story, just horrific. Sorry about that. Like I said, these were two really bad stories, but I think they're stories that are important for people to know. Now, the final story, which is really good, and I put this video on TikTok too. So folks, please go to my TikTok. Actually, okay, I hate to be troublesome to the moderators on YouTube, but if you go to my TikTok, see if there's any way for you to grab the copy link to the video and put it on YouTube, because people can just click and look at it without having the YouTube app. A young guy working, I guess, maybe a volunteer, I'm not sure, with the Kharkiv Zoo. Kharkiv, I was telling you, is Ukraine's second largest city. It's in the northeast of Ukraine. It's right by the Russian border. It's actually a Russian-speaking city. Like, they grew up speaking Russian because there's such a mixture of the ethnicities back and forth, but proudly Ukrainian, but they're ethnic Russians. Well, the Russians have been bombing the hell out of this city for weeks now. I mean, destroying Kharkiv. Really sad. My friend Vlad, who I had on the video several weeks ago, is from Kharkiv. He's also the person who we've been raising money for, who is now distributing it to other people in need. Still raising money for Vlad. I promised myself again I was going to get Vlad's PayPal address to put up, and I forgot, but you can find it in my profile link on TikTok. You will find the link for Vlad's PayPal. You can pay directly, and maybe we can, the mods, I'll put it up, but the mods can put up the link in here as well. So anyway, Kharkiv Zoo, fabulous video. You really want to go to my TikTok and find this video. This guy goes to the Kharkiv Zoo, and of course, imagine, bombs are falling, animals aren't getting fed. The zoo is running out of money because obviously people aren't paying to go to the zoo. And what happens? He goes to the zoo and he personally rescues 8 kangaroos. And the video shows this guy. I want to see if there's any chance, because sometimes you know how the iPhone and iPad synchronize videos. Let me see if there's any chance it's on here. I don't think it is. It's on my YouTube. On my my TikTok, but let me just see if there's any chance here. I don't think there is. One moment, guys. It's a fabulous. I mean, it really is. It's worth it. It is not here yet. I'm going to leave my videos open just on the chance that it synchronizes. But the guy is telling his story, and it's only 10 or 15 seconds long. And he turns, and his friend must have the video next to him. Oh, great. On YouTube, somebody, Be Kind, already posted it. You see the guy talking, and then the camera turns, and you see 8 kangaroos in the back of his van. And the kangaroos are just kind of standing there. One of them, like, hits the other one in the face. Like, look on the left of the video. You're going to see the kangaroos actually, like, playing almost. It is the most adorable thing you've ever seen. Absolutely wonderful, happy, fabulous. Like I said, I wanted to end on that story because it was just the sweetest thing I'd ever seen. And what a great story. You know, somebody came in and saved the kangaroos. So do check out that video. We're good. It's 1:30 here in DC. I'm going to go a good 45 minutes more. I've got my coffee. I'm going to have another sip of coffee. Thank you, Moon Mia, for recommending it. And now we'll do questions for the next 45 minutes. On TikTok, you can, I know the Australians may think you have too many kangaroos, but to the rest of us, they're adorable. On TikTok, you can submit your questions, and I'll go to the little question center there. On YouTube, you can put them in the comments. I scroll back. But if you guys want to do Super Chat, I will promise to get to the Super Chat questions first, and it's a way of making a donation to me, as is the Super Stickers. And I don't like to harp on the donation thing, but I've decided I'm doing this full time, and I have been for a month now. I am going to stay doing this full time for a long while now. So if you guys can help support my work by doing this, I'm just going to keep reporting on what's going on in Ukraine, and we're going to keep raising money for the Ukrainians. So thank you. Let me, since I sometimes forget about you TikTok people, I will go to TikTok first to the questions, and let's pull up that's not a bad question. So your official Stefan asks, do you think, wait, hold on real quick. I thanked Richard. Richard was one of the very first ones, Moon Mia, and I thanked him at the very beginning. Richard and somebody else did an initial just sticker for fun. And I said, thank you, Richard. I didn't miss you, Richard, but thank you for bringing it up because I don't want to make sure I miss those. So your official Stefan asks on TikTok, do you think Putin is done in the coming weeks? Now, this gets to that initial question, I would say, which, remember right when we started, I said somebody on TikTok had asked the question, will Ukraine win? I think we're in that's right. I promised I was going to have a sip of caffeine, and then we continue. Thank you for that. This war has turned out to be very interesting. Ukraine was not supposed to win. Ukraine was supposed to lose, thank you for that, within 3 to 4 days, right? The Russians were going to come in. They were going to take out all of the air and all the planes, take out all the air defenses, and just destroy Kyiv, the capital, in 3 to 4 days and win. And I think all of us here in the United States believed it too. I was reading something the other day that this is one of the reasons people believe that Biden and the West, NATO, did not pre-position a lot of aircraft and a lot of military machinery and weapons in Ukraine before the war, because they just assumed Ukraine was going to lose in 4 days. What was the point? We'd just be giving the weapons to the Russians. And of course, as we saw, everything changed. Everything changed. The Ukrainians have been kicking butt. You could call it a stalemate if you want, although it's not some of the reason I think the experts don't like to call what's going on a stalemate. A stalemate means a tie. The idea is it's not a tie. Right now, the Russians were kind of going ahead, right? They were pushing ahead, but not winning. The Ukrainians were pushing back, but were having a lot of losses. Now the Ukrainians are pushing back and actually advancing. You're seeing in towns north of Kyiv, as I said, the capital, you're seeing the Russians actually be pushed backwards a little more towards Russia, which is great news. You're seeing in the south, there is at least talk. The New York Times reported this yesterday, but there's been some disagreement as to whether the Russians have lost some of the towns in the south that they took and whether Ukrainians have kicked them out. The point is the ownership is going back and forth. The Russians are not winning this, but the problem is the Russians aren't really losing. I mean, they're losing in the sense that the Russians should have won in 3 days. By not winning in 3 days, the Russians have lost. Yes, but it's not like the Ukrainians have enough troops and enough weapons to just destroy all the Russian military and permanently kick them out. They don't have that. So you've got a situation where I say it's a tie, but it's a tie where both sides are going to keep hurting each other a lot. And especially if Putin's telling the truth, and frankly, we shouldn't necessarily believe the Russians are telling the truth here. Don't believe the Russians are telling the truth when they say, oh, we've given up on Western Ukraine and Kyiv, the capital. We're only going to focus on the southeast now. Maybe, or maybe they're lying and they're still going to go after the capital again. Who knows? But so we shouldn't believe what the Russians are saying. But my concern is there so far is no clear end to this. The Russians are getting beat. The Russians are losing a lot of men. We know NATO has estimated up to 15,000 Russians have died in this war. General Hertling, former American general, retired, brilliant man. He thinks the Russians have lost 20,000 men. And keep in mind how many that is. In Afghanistan, over 10 years, the Russians lost 14,500 men in 10 years. In Ukraine, in 1 month, the Russians have lost 15,000 to 20,000 men. That's more men than they lost in Afghanistan in 10 years in just 1 month. That's how, or compared to the U.S. It's twice the number of deaths the U.S. had in our military in Iraq and Afghanistan over 20 years. And I can tell you, speaking as an American, those deaths were a big deal in America. I mean, we considered that a lot of men, good men and women whose lives were lost in Iraq and Afghanistan, a lot. And to think that the Russians lost twice as many in 1 month and we lost them in 20 years, that's how bad the Russians are doing. So I don't see how the war ends, but I don't see how Russia wins. And the question becomes, I mean, I almost think that the Russians, one scenario is that the Russians do something so hideous, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, biological weapons, or they line up hundreds of civilians and shoot them like World War II style. In a mass grave, and it's caught on tape. Something so horrific that the world looks and says, that's it, we're getting involved, and NATO gets involved. That something like that happens to get NATO involved and Russia finally actually loses the war, that's one possibility of how Ukraine wins, where in the end, Ukraine gets all of its land back, the Russians are gone, the Russians have to pay reparations, meaning the Russians have to pay money back to Ukraine to help rebuild the country they destroyed. That's one possibility. But it's, I don't know beyond that. Now, I will say, Chantel just asked about peace talk updates. There are really no peace talk updates. I just saw yesterday that the Russians were trying to peddle some kind of crazy thing about, oh, we've had significant progress in the peace talks. And I think it was both the Turks who have been brokering, the Turkish government has been brokering these peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. The Turks and the Ukrainians both said, basically, that's a lie. There's been no progress in the peace talks. So, just keep in mind. What else we got going? I will pull up I'll pull up another YouTube question. And again, folks, remember, you feel free to do the super chat questions. I don't mean to harp on it, but it helps me see your question and it helps support my work. So thank you for that. That's an interesting question too. So Jessica asks on YouTube, that's why they're not picking their dead, meaning the Russians. Russian moms can't be mad about their dead boys if they don't know they're dead. There's been a lot of talk about how the Russians do not treat their war dead the same way we do. In America, at least, we have a saying in our military, leave no man behind. And what they mean is not just do you leave no soldier behind who's been captured or wounded or anything else, but they literally don't leave the bodies of the dead soldiers behind. That our troops actually go and get the bodies and bring them back. The Russians do not. Sometimes the Russians do. But there have been a lot of reports from Ukraine of the Russians just picking up and leaving the dead bodies. And the most amazing report I saw was from a Ukrainian town in the south. It might have even been Mariupol. I'm not sure, but it was a town that was being destroyed by the Russians. And a local Ukrainian undertaker made it his mission to go and find the Russian bodies of the Russian troops. Mind you, the Russian troops who have been trying to kill him and his family went, collected their bodies, got 2 big refrigerator trucks with like 300 bodies either combined or 300 bodies each, Mind you, he's using his own fuel to keep these refrigerator trucks going, to basically keep the Russian bodies on ice until the war is over and they can return them to their families in Russia. I mean, if that doesn't show you the difference between the Ukrainians and the Russians, that the Russian troops are literally leaving their dead behind, and the Ukrainians are actually saving the dead of the very people who are trying to kill their families and who are intentionally killing civilians. And they're still trying to save the dead because they feel bad for the families in Russia, and they want the families to at least have them afterwards. So really interesting. Now, real quick, because Jessica kind of gets at this, the question becomes is, are they leaving the dead so maybe they can claim they're prisoners of war or something? I mean, I don't know. I don't know, but it's pretty, oops, sorry, me, I didn't mean to put that one up. I don't know, but how long can you hide somebody who's dead? I mean, you can't hide somebody who's dead. They're not coming back to their families. And at some point the families know. Oh, hang on. Okay. Oh, thanks, Casey. Yep. So Catherine, it's a little bit of a slower day here, but that's okay. You know what? It's funny. The one thing I found with all of you guys is the weekends, interestingly enough, the weekends we get fewer people. And I've been curious about this because last night, which was a Friday night here in America, meaning when I did it at 7 o'clock at night, we had a ton of people. And I was surprised because A, in Europe, I'm thinking it's too late at night in Europe. B, in America, it's a Friday night, so people are getting ready to go out with their friends. And in America, we generally go out earlier than a lot of people do around the world. So 7 o'clock at night is a normal time you might go to dinner at a restaurant with friends. We had a ton of people. But then on the weekend when I do it, we don't get as many people. And I've been trying to figure out the times that work for you guys. I ought to do like a little poll or something just to see, or maybe you can say it in the comments and I'll at least see them fly by, whether on the weekends like this, is it better, whatever time I started at 1 o'clock Eastern time US today, is it better a little earlier? Is it better a couple hours later? I'm just trying to figure out like what time we'd get more people, but I'm just surprised because I figured the weekends we'd have more people and we don't. So people prefer during the week, which is totally okay. Catherine asks, do you think Putin has to involve NATO, the US to get other countries to give them more support? I'm not sure what you mean, Catherine. Let me read this again. Do you think Putin has to involve NATO and US to get other countries to give them more support? If you mean other countries to give Russia more support, which I think is where you're going, yes, I think Russia has been trying to get China to help them, right? We know this. Thank you for the roses, by the way, on TikTok. Russia has been trying to get China to help them. Russia wanted humanitarian aid. They wanted food. Russia literally didn't have food for its troops. The food they had for their troops was like 7 or 8 years old, expired by 7 years. I mean, this is how badly the Russians did not keep up their supplies. I mean, they didn't prepare for war at all, really. They prepared 30 years ago and then just let everything go bad. So that's the first problem. They asked the Chinese for help. They also asked the Chinese for weapons. We don't know yet. The Chinese have not made clear, and we have not seen evidence yet as to whether the Chinese are giving weapons to the Russians. But for Russia to get that from China, it's certainly, thank you for that on TikTok, by the way, and for that, I'm a big star astronomy guy. For the Russians to get China to jump in and help them with weapons, it would be better for Russia if NATO were involved and China saw this as a Russia versus NATO, Russia versus America thing. Currently, it's Russia versus a little country, and China, who's trying to win over the love of many little countries around the world, right? Because China is sort of establishing its own international reputation now in Africa, for example, Latin America, investing in businesses, investing in countries. China can't be seen as beating up on little countries. And I mean, Ukraine is a little country compared to Russia and China. Ukraine's 43 million people. So it is easier to get China involved to help Russia if Russia's fighting NATO than if Russia is simply fighting Ukraine. So if that's your question, Catherine, I think that's part of it. Also, for Putin, I think Putin's nuts on this count. But for Putin, if he's trying to get people at home to support the war, people are going to be much more interested in supporting the war against NATO, the war against America, than they will be the war against Ukraine. The Russian people look at Ukraine as being one of their Slavic brothers, or at least a Slavic cousin, right? Whereas America has always been told to be the threat. NATO has always, I haven't seen that before. Sorry. Someone just put a lion up on TikTok that's really cool, and I've never seen that before. So thank you for that. That was had to stop. That was actually very cool. Forgot what I was saying. The lion, you threw me with the lion. Actually, and I do have to apologize. I appreciate when people give me those things, and I've got to thank them because they're giving gifts. And at the same time, this is what TikTok is. YouTube, a little more serious. TikTok is about sort of this back and forth sharing stuff that I assume that was an expensive, cool thing somebody just put. Thank you. This one is too. Part of what's fun about TikTok is that you can have this back and forth. I don't know if folks on YouTube have ever seen it, but you can have this back and forth where people can give you these gifts that are really glasses and hats, and in this case, like the universe twirling around in the sky, and it's really cool. And it's kind of crazy, but mixing with a serious story like this, there's something kind of cool about mixing the very serious with fun. And I guess I would put it meaning, I don't even know how to put the comparison. I realize it's a weird comparison or weird mixture of the two, but I will say this, having worked on politics for 30 years, it's better to have something a little light and nice and pleasing occasionally mixed in with all the bad, because if you just have bad, it gets depressing. So, all right, I'll stop with my NATO answer there, Catherine. I think that was a long answer. I'm hoping it was a good answer. Okay, nobody else here on YouTube. I will pull up more TikTok questions. Thank you for the TikTokers. Question on TikTok. Boom, that's a good one too. So Angie Rants asks, do you think Ukraine will be allowed into NATO? Not for a while, I don't. I think you've got two things going on, Angie. First of all, Ukraine has pretty much figured out that NATO is being a pain in the A, right? That Ukraine wanted to join NATO in 2008, I think, like 14 years ago. NATO has been playing games with Ukraine. We claimed, they had to do democratic reforms. And then we claimed that their military wasn't good enough. You've got to be a world-class military to join NATO. Well, obviously, Ukraine has a world-class military. I mean, Ukrainian farmers alone have a world-class military, right? But all joking aside, Ukraine clearly has a great military. But we wouldn't let them in because their military wasn't good enough. But then we let in former states of Yugoslavia, the former republics of Yugoslavia, several of them. And again, great. I think it's great we let them in. That's fabulous. But clearly these former republics of Yugoslavia had much smaller militaries than the Ukrainians did, and much, I would say, less prepared militaries than the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have one hell of a military. And it's in any case, it upsets me a little, and I think it upsets the Ukrainians a little that NATO, I think, was afraid of Russia, and NATO did not want to let in Ukraine because they thought it would tick off Russia, so they didn't do it. Ukraine now, I think, realizes that, which is really sad. Hold on a second. Oh, the piano vid. I don't have. I'll write the piano thing down real quick. Anyway, it makes me very sad. I think the Ukrainians know that NATO isn't ready for it. If anything, I worry that this whole thing with Russia proves exactly what NATO was afraid of. NATO was afraid if we accepted Ukraine, we ran the risk of Russia invading Ukraine, and then the US and NATO gets into a war with Russia. And in a twisted way, NATO could now look at this and say, you see, we told you, if we accept them, we're getting into war with Russia. We don't want to accept them. Rather than looking at it as, we kind of screwed this country all these years. These were good people, clearly good people. They want to live under democracy. They don't want to live under Soviet, and I will say Soviet on purpose, because the Russians, I think, are turning back into the Soviets, Soviet domination, and they have a world-class military, and we should have accepted them, and we still should. But I think you're going to see that, and frankly, maybe it will be one of the things that's agreed upon when there's finally a peace treaty. That NATO agrees not to join, or Ukraine agrees not to join NATO for 10 years or something. I don't know what. Who knows? But, okay, Munmia, whoever that was on TikTok, somebody is telling me you spent an inordinate amount of money on that lion and possibly that universe too. So, I thanked you before, but thank you so much. Again, I thank you guys, because the other thing to remember is, as I said, when people are putting up these fun things on the screen, you're supporting my work. Thank you for that. I kid you not. This is what I do for a living. I do social media. I do politics. And good or not, I decided about 30 years ago that I was going to be basically an activist on LGBT rights issues, on lots of issues. And most of the time, you don't make money doing that kind of stuff. If you try to do good in the world, you don't do well. I will just tell you, as somebody who's tried to do good in the world. So it is very nice to see people supporting with those kind of gifts. And it's important because, as I said, I just decided to do this. The money I am making these couple months total is the money that you guys are giving me through the donations on these things. So thank you. And as I've told you before, 100%, I'll pull this question off. 100% of the money you guys donated to Vlad in Ukraine is going to Vlad and the people there. I'm not taking a penny of that. So it's what you guys give me here. So thank you so much, Mr. Ms. Lion Universe person there. You are fabu. Let me pull up another quick question here on YouTube. There's nothing. So real quick. Oh, and thank you. And the YouTubers just threw up a bunch of, or TikTokers threw up a bunch of stuff. Thank you guys. Interesting question here. So let me find the name here. I can see your name with my glasses. American Girl 6605 asks, is the ghost of Kyiv real? Any updates? No updates. The ghost of Kyiv. It's a really neat story. The ghost of Kyiv is this story that started off in the first week or so of the war. And it was, supposedly this Ukrainian fighter pilot who was so good, he had taken down, I don't know how many Russian planes. And now we know at the same time that the Russians were not able to take over the Ukrainian airspace, right? I mean, and we know even today, the Russians fly some, the Ukrainians fly some. The Russians do not control the Ukrainian airspace. It's crazy. They should have been able to control this airspace in a couple days. So the story that was out there was this amazing ace fighter pilot called the Ghost of Kyiv, Kyiv being the capital, right? The Ghost of Kyiv. And the ghost meaning like a phantom. Nobody knows who he is. He slips in, had lots of kills. And nobody knows if it's real or not. When I interviewed my friend Vlad, who is a Ukrainian from Kharkiv, the town in the northeast that's getting destroyed by the Russians, he fled with his family. He's got a wife, in-laws that are old and ill. Like his one in-law is like 80, in the upper 80s. He's got a 3-year-old daughter and was not going to leave his 3-year-old daughter in Kharkiv getting bombed. So took the family. They're in Western Ukraine now. And Vlad has been the one that we've been giving money to that's been giving it to other refugees in need. But what Vlad was saying was, he said, the Ghost of Kyiv, absolutely real. Absolutely real. The Ukrainians are 100% convinced that this person is real. It's not a myth. But there's no news about it. There was a news report that came out a week ago trying to claim that he had died. And I saw a fact check by the Western media that said there was no proof whatsoever. That basically there's no news. I wouldn't be surprised if a fact check about the Ghost of Kyiv dying was something the Russians put out there. Because you can imagine this figure, this larger-than-life figure of the Ghost of Kyiv would certainly inspire a lot of Ukrainians, and it has. So let me look really quick. Oops. That's all right. Russia sent people into Donbass to cause unrest before war. Well, Russia's been, Shauna asks, I think this is it for Shauna, hopefully. Shauna asks, and then I'll get to CB in a second there. Shauna asked, did Russia send people into Donbass, that region in the east that they're trying to steal, to cause unrest before the war? Oh, yeah. They've been doing it for I know at least going back 8 years. I don't know. My guess is it started before then, but at least for 8 years, the Russians have been, did somebody just check in? Just checking if somebody had just checked in. Ooh, and now a pretty cruise ship. Somebody is being very kind today. Sorry, gorgeous cruise ship on TikTok right now. Man, anyway, I've never seen things that beautiful on here. Amazing. So anyway, yes, the Donbass, the Russians, first of all, have been paying sort of insurrectionists, basically people to call, I'll call them terrorists in essence, people to cause trouble, to convince people that they're being oppressed. They would blow things up and then say the Ukrainians did it. Things like this, right? Like secret agents almost. At the same time, the Russians have absolutely been moving Russian troops in there. I know that. I'm trying to remember with Russian citizens. I would guarantee you they've moved in Russian citizens. I know for a fact one other trick the Russians did, which frankly is very similar to what happened with Hitler and Nazi in World War II. With I think it was the Sudetenland. The Russians gave passports to all the people living in this eastern province in Ukraine, because by giving them passports, the Russians could then claim these are Russian citizens. So now what is Russia doing? Russia's invading to save its hundreds of thousands of citizens in eastern Ukraine. Do you get it? See? And this is the same thing Hitler pulled. There were Germans living in other countries, and Hitler simply wanted to save those Germans living in other countries. Same thing Putin is doing now. So anyway, there you go for that answer. KC asks, is it okay or politically incorrect to experience schadenfreude, which is a fabulous word? Interestingly enough, schadenfreude, got to be German, right? I always forget. I think a German word that we use here in America, except that it's a bit of a highfalutin word, I would say, meaning a bit of an intellectual word. Pashy, pashy, I think you Brits say. You know I love that hat. But it's a great word. There's no other word like it in English. Schadenfreude, which basically means... Thank you for that too. Schadenfreude basically means a excitement and joy at somebody else's pain, is the way I would put it. So you're happy that somebody else is sad. In this case, is it okay or politically incorrect to experience schadenfreude over Russian commanders driven over by their frustrated soldiers? That's really interesting. Interesting. I'm sorry. Somebody just wrote in and said, so the German word Schaden is damage. Damage joy? So, okay, so interesting, okay. I mean, I get the idea. German is such a funky language. I mean, you get like those long words. It's fast. I'd never studied German. I wish I almost did because I love language, and I love the way German puts words together as one word to make a whole new concept. It's really fascinating. What Casey's referring to is there is a Russian commander who, damage Freude, okay, yep. There is a German commander, not that far away. I mean, in the old Germans, not the new. We love the new Germans. We love you guys. But there is a Russian commander who apparently got half of his unit killed. Half of the men under him were dead now. I mean, that's how badly these guys got destroyed. His people were not thrilled. You can imagine the surviving men. And the story goes, and I've seen this repeated in multiple places, and they even said the guy's name. The story goes that his troops waited until he got he was in front of them on the ground walking, and they were in their tank, and they ran over him with their tank on purpose. Somebody's got fireworks. Those fireworks would be schadenfreude. That's exactly the definition of telling a bad story and you're taking pleasure, basically. It is unclear whether he was very, very injured or whether he was killed. Some of the stories are now saying that he was killed. Mind you, he was run over with a tank. So, if he survived, he's got to be in pretty bad shape. The other related story is that as of this morning, the Ukrainians are now saying, and people have his name. People have the general's name. The 7th Russian general has been killed in Ukraine now, is the latest reporting. 7 generals now dead. The Russians had about 20 generals, it is believed, in Ukraine. 7 would mean more than a third of the Russian generals are dead. Generals don't die in wartime because they're typically not at the front. They're behind coordinating things. Well, I'm going to remove this question. The morale has been so bad among the Russian troops, and again, not surprisingly, right? Why? And I'll get to Lisa in a second. Thank you, Lisa. The morale has been so bad with the Russian troops because they're getting killed. We talked about that 40-mile-long convoy being destroyed and held up. They're not getting supplies. They're not getting food and water. They're having to loot stores for food, right? I mean, these Russians, the morale is horrific. Oh, apparently, one report of an intercepted Russian military guy, they heard him talking and saying that half of the members of his troop had frostbite on their feet. Half of them on their feet, mind you, on their feet. Imagine that, right? So really bad what's going on there. Well, basically, the morale was so bad that the generals went to the front meaning where the action's happening, to try to be like alongside the other guys going, yeah, come on, we can do this. And the Ukrainians killed them. Part of the way we think the Ukrainians are killing them, in part, is, I told this story yesterday, but I love to tell this story because it's such a good example of how the Russians have screwed up this war. A little more caffeine. The Russians come into Ukraine, and what do? Do you remember the story that first week of the war or so, how everybody was upset because the Russians blew up that Jewish memorial, the Jewish war memorial, where in the, I'm forgetting the exact year now, but the Nazis lined up, oh God, I want to say 34,000 Jews, and lined them up, and over a 2-day period shot them one by one. Over 2 days, 34, it was either 17,000 or 34,000, same difference. People one by one in a huge pit. They're still buried there today. It's a whole memorial to the Holocaust and all of this. And I think it's called, I'm forgetting what it's called. I'm not going to say. I was going to say a name, but that may be I was going to say Yad Vashem, but I think that may be the Holocaust Museum in Israel. Either way, huge Holocaust memorial, and the Russians bomb it because they were trying to hit a communications tower next to it. Well, the Russians took down or tried to take down the 3G and 4G cell towers in Ukraine. Well, what happens? The secure communications the Russians use to talk to each other to plan the war on the field, and when I say secure, I mean encrypted, so NATO and Ukraine can't listen in. They apparently use the 3G and 4G cell towers. So the Russians destroyed the very cell towers they needed in order to communicate securely. So now the Russians are communicating in a non-secure. Is that it? Baba Yar? Yeah, Yad Vashem is Jerusalem. Baba Yar, maybe? Baba Yar. There you go. Thank you. The TikTok folks jumped in with that. Thank you. Baba Yar is the memorial in Ukraine, in Kyiv. So the Russians are now talking on open lines, so everybody can hear them. And it's thought, in at least one case, maybe more, the Ukrainians literally heard the Russian general on the phone talking and literally said, send in a missile, and they got him. So really, I mean, idiotic work by the Russians and brilliant work by the Ukrainians. Now, Lisa had asked a question. Lisa Sepp asks, what do you think the motive is for taking the Ukrainians over to Russia? That is a fascinating question. There have been multiple reports of the Russian troops taking Ukrainian civilians over to Russia. Now, it's been a variety of stuff here. Thank you for the roses, by the way. I do see them all popping up in the hearts, even though I don't mention everyone. I do see them. I've actually intentionally, just so you all know, because I keep looking back and forth from YouTube to TikTok, I've got my phone right here and my screen right here so that the comments are actually together. So I can literally, even when I'm looking at a YouTube comment, I see some roses just popped up and I can see you guys commenting. So don't worry. I'm spreading my love equally. I just want you guys to know. I actually am paying attention to both of you. In any case, so the stories have been the Russians, thank you for those roses. The Russians have been sending a lot of civilians from Ukraine over to Russia. There was one story the other day of 62,000 sent. There was another one from one small town of maybe 4,000 sent. The question becomes why they're doing it. Now, I think there's a number of things. One, Russia's trying to pretend that Ukraine isn't a real country. That's their argument. It's not a real country. It was created by world powers, blah, blah, blah. Well, give me a break. No country is a real country if that's your argument, right? Look at the border. Look at the history of any country. The borders expanded. They were one people. It changed, it changed, it changed, it changed. I mean, I like to look at France, or even worse, look at the UK, because being an American, we have a certain affinity for the United Kingdom because of our language and our joint history, and of course the American Revolution and all that history. And it's what is interesting to me is I love language. So I go back and study the history of English, and it confuses the hell out of me because you've got the Anglos and the Saxons. So the Vikings came, there was this first English that isn't even English that they spoke that has nothing to do with us today. And the Vikings came in and they affected it. And then the French come in somehow, and I never understand the French. There's this whole weird thing with Northern France and England and the kings and, right? The king with the tapestry. Anyway, the history is so freaking confusing because you can't say a country, a people maybe is a construct of our hearts and our culture, but the country itself is a political construct. We drew these borders, or maybe somebody drew them for us, but they're always changing at least over history. You can't, anyway, bottom line is saying Ukraine was created by somebody else is just ridiculous. Every country was created by somebody else, so to speak. So anyway, they're taking long story short, I think the Russians are taking the Ukrainians over to Russia as a way of saying, it's the same thing. They're Russians anyway. What's the difference, right? So they're making a political point. 2, they're absolutely positively taking these people as hostages. No question about it. No question about it. Part of the negotiation after the war is going to be the Russians refusing to let these people leave. I think absolutely. And it's horrific. But I've said this before, if the Russians are willing to bomb children, they would certainly be willing to take children hostage, right? Because that's at least less than actually bombing children in a theater, which we know the Russians have done. Or like this poor boy Yura I talked about, where they executed his father in front of him and then tried to execute him. If they're willing to do that, they're at least willing to take hostages. So there you go. So that's my thoughts on that, Lisa. Oh, Strong Life Mentoring. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. The super sticker. Let me pull up another TikTok question. Excuse me. I haven't pulled up your guys' questions in a little bit. What do we got here? Maybe. That's a really interesting question. So maybe be cool. Be a cool. I think it's be cool, but making the B kind of funny, like B-E-A. Maybe that's your name, I'm going to guess. Hide this. So Be Cool asks, could Russia fall as the USSR did with the Afghan war? Yes. You know what? This is why when you talk about the number of deaths that happened with the Afghan war, when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, 1979, 81. I'm already forgetting when they invaded. But basically, the Soviet war in Afghanistan went on throughout the 80s. And then ended at around the same time the Soviet Union Eastern Europe collapsed and the Eastern Bloc, collapsed, and the Soviet Union collapsed. And they say, I was reading on this the other day, that Russia, and I do not claim to be a Russia history expert going back hundreds of years, but Russia has a history of military defeats leading to governments falling. And the military defeats very often lead to the military itself no longer supporting the government, so that the government falls. So interesting story when you look at the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. 10 years, they lose 14,500 or so troops. That's considered a horrific number of troops over 10 years. They've already lost more than that, we believe, in Ukraine in 1 month. But over 10 years, that was enough to create this I don't know if it created the Mothers Movement or whether it just elevated it, but there still is this movement of sort of mothers of the war, of the POWs and mothers of the war dead in Russia. Hugely powerful group. You know, for a country that doesn't allow dissent, the mothers got away with it. Hugely powerful political group. And this group and the war dead from the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan helped bring down the end of the Soviet Union. So the question becomes, could this war imperil maybe not Russia as a country, but Putin's government as a government? Absolutely. But, you know, he's also a very effective dictator, and he knows what he's doing, and he kills people. He's very happy to kill people. He's very happy to poison people, right? He's killed his political opponents. He's jailed his political opponents. He just gave Navalny, his political opponent, who he wouldn't let run against him in the election. He gave him first, I think, 2 years in jail for some trumped up charge. And they just went back and gave him is it another 9 years, I think, that they gave him the other day? Because in Russia, you could do that. They just go back and give him more time because Putin clearly wanted him in jail longer. So they gave him more time. I mean, this is and Putin has tried to kill Navalny repeatedly with poison. He killed another political dissident years ago, walking by the Kremlin along the river there, the highway. This is what they kill journalists. They throw people out windows. I mean, you will see stories from Russia. This is one of the really horrible stories you always see from Russia, is stories about, you know, people, whether they're opposition, whether they're newspaper people, whatever, being, you know, falling from their balconies. And the Russian secret police will literally go to their homes and throw them off of their balconies and claim it was a suicide. I mean, and it's one of their favorite things they like to do. It's really, anyway, very vile. My point in bringing all of this up is Putin is I don't even want to use the word effective. Putin knows what he's doing as a dictator, and he knows how to create fear, and he knows how to get rid of his opponents. So the question becomes, is this enough to overthrow Putin? I will say this. I can't believe, you know, more caffeine, then I'll answer. It's an open question whether the Russian people know the truth about what's going on with the war, right? The rest of us and the rest of the world do. The media has been amazing. The internet has been amazing, right? I mean, I was saying the other day, just that all of us can come together like this kind of blows my mind. The fact that you can donate. Actually, I've got this link on my the mods can drop it in if you want. My beacons link, which is the link in my TikTok profile, but also the link you guys YouTube can go to. You go to my link of links, and on my page, you'll see you can donate directly to the Russian army, which is totally cool. It's via the National Bank of Ukraine. Set up an account using Google Pay. You can donate directly to the, oh my God, I said the Russian army. Oh my God, stop me. I'm getting tired already, guys. Sorry. The Ukrainian, I'm looking at what time it is. 2:11. That's why I've been talking. I've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes. I could tell I was getting tired. I'm like, why am I saying Russian? You can donate directly to the Ukrainian army. I corrected myself. I messed up. You can donate directly to the Ukrainian army via the National Bank of Ukraine, and it's Google Pay. And I donated $100 the other day, and I go there, and literally, I go to the page, I type in $100, I click, the button. It brings up one quick thing and says, "Oh, is this your account?" And maybe it repeated 4 digits of my credit card or something. I said yes. Boom, the money was sent. I mean, I literally donated to the Ukrainian army $100 instantaneously from my computer via Google Pay with two clicks of a button. That was it. That is how much the war has changed. Oh, thank you, Mecca. I just saw that come through. It came through on my phone. That was very sweet of you. Or wherever you are, Mecca, I just saw that donation come in. Thank you. That was sweet of you. And thank you for the hat. So how much this war has changed things. When I put up the link about the National Bank of Ukraine, basically crowdfunding for support of the military, somebody said there's literally crowdfunding for a war. And I mean, when you think about that, and it can be a very scary concept, I would say a very exciting concept, because I don't look at it as crowdfunding for a war. I look at it as crowdfunding to save people. That we can crowdfund to save the good people in a war. Actually, and I hope not to get all metaphysical today about it, but I was thinking about this the other day. People talk about millennials and now Gen Z, and some of what your generations have been through. And for example, in America, we've been at war for 20 years from 9/11 to today. We finally, Trump pulled us out of Afghanistan, and then Biden finally pulled everybody else out. But Trump, and I'm not getting into the politics here, but Trump brokered the deal, and Biden said, yep, I'm agreeing to the deal. So both of them agreed. If you want to blame them, blame both as far as I'm concerned, but whatever. Let's not get into the politics. Biden pulls us out of Afghanistan, and that was the first time America hadn't been at war in 20 years, and now we got this. What is interesting is, this may be the first time in 20 years, maybe not the first time, but let me put it this way. I think it's very interesting for people to see this war and to realize that sometimes war can be just. And what I mean is that not the Russians, but the reason that we are helping the Ukrainians is because the Ukrainians defending their country and the Ukrainians defending their people is a righteous cause. It is clear what's going on in this war. And sometimes you don't get things this clear in international relations. It's clear who the good people are and who the bad people are. And sometimes you've got to help the good people fight a war, and it's for good. In other words, war can be a force for good, is what I mean. Although very often it's a force for good because you're defending yourself. But nonetheless, like I said, but much more deep conversation for us to have another day. But it's neat to me how we've all been able to sort of come together on this and actually help the Ukrainians by crowdfunding a war. It's crazy. Yeah, Strong Life, I did thank you for that. Thank you. I was just looking to make sure I thanked you. Oh, you can't. Oh, sorry. Strong Life just asked, it'd be nice if there would be a way to support you and your work via PayPal. There is, as credit cards are not common in Germany as the rest of the world. Yeah, I've got my PayPal link. I'm writing this down because if the moderators can put up that Beacons link again, or I can put it up here too, but you can't click mine. You can click theirs. If you go to the link in my profile, or you go to that link on the YouTube screen, except you can't click it, you'd have to write it down. That takes you to the page where I've got how to donate to the relief work Vlad is doing, how to donate to the Ukrainian army. And you go down, you're going to see my PayPal, my Cash App, and my Venmo. And if you want to donate to me directly, to my work, you can just donate there. I would say maybe add a note that you're donating to me, because I've been assuming for the last week or two, I need to put, well, the PayPal is in the bio, so to speak. If you go to my, sorry, for the TikTok folks, if you go to my bio, click that one link that says beacons. It's going to take you to a page of links, and on that link, you're going to find my PayPal. So just click the link in my bio, and you will find PayPal on the next page. But I've been assuming that all the donations coming in are for Vlad to give to the Ukrainians. So, and I certainly don't object to you supporting my work too. So if you intend to give it for me, let me know that, so I don't just immediately send it to Vlad. Because I even sent him somebody overnight, God bless you, in Belgium if you're here, but somebody in Belgium sent $100 overnight. And I literally woke up and saw it on my phone, and Robin, the name was Robin. Yeah, Robin in Belgium sent some money for Vlad, and I sent it over this morning. And actually, I meant to send you a note. And just so you guys know, abroad, for some reason, PayPal wouldn't let me send a note back to somebody in Belgium to thank them. It said comments were not allowed or something. So thank you, whoever you are out there. But I tried to thank you. Bottom line is, yes, you can use PayPal for me, and you can use my PayPal if you want to donate to Vlad. Although, frankly, use Vlad's PayPal. It's more transparent and it's right there. But either way, thank you for that. But I'm gonna write this down, because I need to PayPal John and Vlad. I need to add those links to what I show on the screen occasionally. So thank you for that. I'm willing to do another question, guys. It's 2:15. We've been doing this an hour and 15 minutes. I am getting tired. So typically, I'll do one more question. Typically, at this point, we switch over into hanging out and talking just for fun for like 15, 20 minutes, sometimes longer. And I like that, because especially actually, both of you have been doing it. The YouTube folks have really been enjoying it. Even on TikTok, we've had over 1,000 people just hanging out for another 20 minutes, just shooting the breeze. So feel free to hang out. Let me answer one more question. You know what? I'm going to go with TikTok one more time, only because sometimes in the past, I've been focusing more on your YouTube. Love you though, folks. Thank you. There you go. Somebody gave me the sorting hat, but my Harry Potter hat, which is my favorite. So that guarantees I'm answering a TikTok question. Thank you. Actually, you know what? I'm thinking about this in the future. Maybe I'll make that one of my rules too, that every time I'll have to think about this. Every time somebody gives me one of those icons on TikTok, I'll write it down so I make sure to answer another TikTok question. Maybe that's a good way to make sure that I'm actually thanking both of you guys equally. Again, this is a work in progress doing this via social media. It's been really, I love this. My mom, oh my God, my sister turned my mom onto this today. I was like, oh no. Mom goes, because, your sister showed me a few of your videos on this TikTok thing. They were very good. And I'm like, oh no. She goes, when you visit for Easter, you have to show me how I can watch you. And I was like, no. I don't know. It's weird. I don't want mom watching. You know what? Because mom's going to be like, your hair was pretty good. You need to get a little cut here, or that shirt you wore. Not that you guys don't criticize my clothing too, but, nonetheless. All right, TikTok, I owe you a question. Let me find a good little. You know what? This is a very good question on TikTok, because it gets into the whole cyber warfare issue. So Just Us Served one asks, how likely is it that our grid, and I assume they mean our electrical grid, our power grid, will be attacked in a cyber attack by the Russians? That deserves more caffeine, and a really interesting question. So one of the concerns in any kind of a conflict with Russia is that if we get into a direct conflict with Russia, that there will be cyber attacks by them against us. And we are not in a direct conflict with Russia, but we're in an indirect conflict called a proxy war. In essence, for example, in this case, you would say Ukraine is our proxy. In other words, our stand-in fighting against Russia. We're giving them the weapons, they're attacking the Russians, right? So we're kind of in a war with Russia anyway. And the discussion amongst the national security types was whether that would be enough to provoke Russia to attack the US or attack NATO with cyber warfare by going after, for example, what just you served asks, would Russia go after our power grid, for example, and do it by doing a cyber attack? It hasn't happened yet. Biden and the White House warned several days ago that people should be on the lookout, basically, that we are concerned about the Russians doing a cyber attack because they're doing so badly in Ukraine that maybe they're going to lash out against us. One of the concerns about the Russians doing a cyber attack is those things don't often stay in one country. Like, you put out a virus or something out there that does this, and it can travel around the world and affect systems all over the world. It can affect, for example, if the Russians were to launch a huge cyber attack in Ukraine, and they've done a few already, that could hit Poland by accident. And now, is that an attack on NATO, right? If they didn't mean to, or did they mean to? So Biden certainly put out the warning a few days ago that the U.S. is growing increasingly concerned that Russia may do a cyber attack. If Russia takes down our power grid, first of all, that's an act of war as far as I'm concerned. If Russia were to take down power in America, it's an act of war. At the very least, America would do the same to Russia. And I'm not sure Russia would be a big fan of that if we took out all the power nationwide. And that's at the very least we would do. The question would become, does the U.S. respond in kind, or do we respond with more? The Israeli strategy, and I'm not going to get into that issue about the politics, but as you know, the Israeli strategy is when you attack them, they attack you like 10 times harder to try to make it clear that you shouldn't do it. With these kind of things, often American policy would be to respond in kind, meaning we do the same amount. So if you were to do something that killed 10 Americans, we would do something that tries to kill 10 of your people. Or if you attacked our power grid, we would attack your power grid. And the idea is we want to do the same thing back to you so that we haven't escalated it. Because if we do more, then it makes you go, well, I only did this, you did this, so I have to do this, right? If you keep doing more, it can escalate bigger and bigger. So I suspect at least the U.S. would respond by doing the same thing. And in a way, this is just like nuclear weapons. I don't see what benefit Russia gets in going after our power grid. I mean, it would piss off the American people. I think a lot of Americans, if they did that, would say, go on in. You know what? Just go on in. Join the Ukrainians in the fight. I don't think Americans would sit back and say, ooh, we're scared now. Russia shut down our power. People would be so ticked off, I think it would backfire on Russia. So, that's my guess. All right, guys, it's 22 after. I am stopping the substance. I always say oh, that's funny. Yeah, the moderators are the moderators are great anyway. I pity the poor moderator. Well, okay, now, actually, I will say now we're at the part where we're all going to hang and chat. No more politics. So if you need to leave, I don't mind. I just wanted to warn folks so that they aren't confused as to why we're now going to talk about puppies and brownies and other fun things from around the world. Thank you guys as well. I see people thanking me on TikTok. Thank you for that. The TikTok is always a little bit harder, as I said, because the TikTok, it's harder for our moderators, and thank you for the moderators. It's harder for our moderators, and I think for the viewers, because TikTok gets so many Russian disinformation people. Actually, I had fun last night. The Russians, I started, and I know with these broadcasts too, a lot of you kind of come in at different times. I started the broadcast and I was explaining some of the story I told last night about how the Russians are starting to be on the defensive in Ukraine, especially north of Kyiv, the capital, and how the Ukrainian troops are pushing the Russians back. The Russians are stuck in the flood, that the Ukrainians flooded the area with one of their dams. And there's now, I will get to the puppy. Puppy's doing well. And the 10,000, according to American experts, 10,000 Russian troops are in danger of being captured or destroyed north of Kyiv, the capital, because the Ukrainians have surrounded them, flooded them, and cut off all of their supplies. Well, you can imagine how happy the Russian disinformation teams were about that. Somebody had asked last night what I meant when I referred to that, and I realized that, again, some of the stuff that I think some of us know who do this stuff every day, we don't realize that you guys don't read everything we read. The Russians have actual teams of people that get together and go online and pretend to be Americans, pretend to be Europeans, Thank you. Call name. I'm always laughing when I see your name. Call name. I'm going to guess Norway. So thank you for that. And thank you for the mods, especially. Exactly. Everybody thank the moderators, by the way, because they're the ones doing the yeoman's work, especially on TikTok. God bless you guys, because I know it's hard. But the Russians got very upset that I reported on the story that 10,000 of their troops were being surrounded, and they just flood. Oh, my YouTube link. That's another thing I need to give you guys. My YouTube link is in my bio link. Yeah, go to my bio link. On TikTok, they're asking. If you click on the link in my bio, one of the many links on that page you get to is my YouTube link. Just use that. It's the easiest way. And you'll see my donation links. You'll see everything's there. You can even check out my LinkedIn and read about who I am. So anyway, the Russians get very upset. They literally have, we call them troll factories. We call them trolls. And they literally have a lot of computer equipment that they can pretend to be anybody from around the world. They pretend to be Americans. They pretend to be Swedes, Germans, whatever, right? And they go and pretend to be our countrymen and countrywomen and trying to sow doubt. So for example, and I can always, they're just so bad at this. I mean, they really are bad at this. First of all, their English is never perfect. So you can always tell, because you're always like, every American coming to say they don't believe the story just can't speak English. And I got news for you. Most Americans pretty good at speaking English. Even if you're not well educated, you speak English pretty well. These guys, there's always something wrong, right? That's the first problem. Then they put out the same message. So they were all saying last night about this video, the video I did about the 10,000 Russian troops that look like they're about to get captured or worse. And they said, where's the video? Where's the video? Now, this is one of the lines the Russians love to use. The Russian disinformation campaign people. Where's the video? And what they don't do, though, because they don't think it through, a lot of this is information they're just copying and pasting from places. And asking where the video is something to make you think, hey, there's no video. Well, where would there be video of 10,000 troops like trapped in a quagmire you wouldn't have a picture of 10,000 troops get together for a selfie? Like there's no picture of 10,000 troops trapped, right? And they all started asking it. And they also go, where's the video? I don't see video. Or my favorite, I can't find this story anywhere. The story is been the top story on CNN for a few days now. It's all over the internet. You can just Google it. What's going on? Just Google it. Any story with an update on what's going on in Ukraine will tell you the northern suburbs of Kyiv, the Ukrainians are pushing back and the Russians are in trouble. It's everywhere. I don't see this story. So I got so ticked off because the Russians were just going nuts in the comments that I did another video last night about it at at 10:30 at night, 10:40 at night. I was so pissed off. And I woke up this morning and that video already had, it had 100,000 views this morning, I think. I'm going to see real quick out here just because since now we're in the just us chatting phase, I can do this. Where is this? Not Instagram, TikTok. Tiki-taki, as I call it. Tiki-toki. I want to see how many views my video has because they ticked me off so much. And it made me so happy that you guys shared it last night because I never know with sort of the overnight crowd, which is pretty much, I would imagine, Europeans and Asians. 275,000 views. Oh, yeah, that's nice. Thank you. That's nice. Oh, my God, I'm laughing. No, that makes me feel good because they were being such jerks. Sasha's been walking around. I should have grabbed her. I'll try to grab her when she walks by again. This is what they do. Yeah. And somebody mentioned the Russian general. Yeah, the 7th Russian general has now been. Thank you, by the way. Usually, folks are asking when I usually go live. What we're doing on the weekends, we're doing 1 p.m. we. Like I'm the royal we. What I mean we is like all of us and you. And I feel like we're a we. All of you guys and all of our mods and everybody else. We become this community. I'm really enjoying this. I've been trying to do on weekends 1 p.m. Eastern Time U.S., that's 1 p.m. Washington, D.C. or 1300 hours Washington, D.C. time. That should be 1700 hours UTC. And otherwise, you can extrapolate. Hello, Hamburg. Oh, you're in Hamburg. I thought you might be in Germany from what you were writing. Strong life. Nice to meet you. And thank you again. So, yeah, it's 1 p.m. Washington, D.C. You can just, or 1300 hours Washington, D.C. You can just check online to see when that'll be the same time we do tomorrow. And then on weekdays, Monday to Friday, I've been doing 7 p.m. Eastern time US, 7 p.m. Washington, D.C. time. That's 1900 hours. And for UTC, at least currently, UTC is 4 hours ahead of me. So instead of 1900, that would be 2300 UTC Monday to Friday. And I know it's a little late for the Europeans, but then we got this issue with the Americans where for Californians, that's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So they're still at work. So it's kind of a mix there, kind of a mix. So what do you do? And I've been to Hamburg, by the way, but only briefly. A friend of mine, Walter O'Hare. Walter, German-American parents. His father was an American service member in World War II. His mom, German. Born and raised in Hamburg, and then went to study in America, so that Walter, when he speaks English, is American, and when he speaks German, he's German. And I went to visit him when I was on my way to Europe for something else and spent a weekend at their house, and we all went to Basel in Switzerland, Bâle in French, but Basel, because their father had his bank account there, which I also love the whole concept. Oh, CB, I have not seen the book yet. Sorry, real quick. Casey, I've not seen a book come in yet. No. It's funny. With the chocolate, I was looking at the note you sent, and I kept thinking, does he mean that's the book? Not yet, but I go down and check, probably like the rest of you, I go down and check my mail once every day or two at maximum. So I never really go there that much. So I'll go and check today, but usually there's never mail. I could go 3 days without checking mail. Switzerland, I love Switzerland. I have not traveled enough. Basel was beautiful. And it's funny because I think as an American, you don't hear a lot about Basel. We hear about Geneva, but I hadn't heard a lot about Basel. I thought Basel was just lovely. We had this gourmet lunch there that at the time, and my friends treated me, at the time it was $100 a person for lunch. But you've got to realize this was, oh God, 35 years ago. It was, I would say in today's dollars, it was like 200, 250. I remember the amount was, to me now it would be like $250 for lunch. I remember going, oh my God, they said, we're treating you. I was like, okay, thank you. We had this multi-course meal at this, German restaurant. And I don't remember now what we had, but I remember we had so many courses. It was amazing. And Basel is just this beautiful town, beautiful old European town by the river. And with each course, we had a different wine and a different liquor, because my friends, they were Germans and very German Americans, and very, very loved their food, loved their liquor with their food. And we had to have a very specific wine with each portion of the meal. And then the best part was, we leave and go after like 5 hours in this restaurant. We go home, and the mother, who's German, wants to know about the meal. And we sat around, and I kid you not, I've been dying to go to Portugal too. I kid you not, we sat around with the mother for an hour, and we talked about the meal. And they literally said, she goes, okay, first course. I said, first course. And I mean, you can almost see I'm sorry, but I laugh as an American, a German doing this. So for the first course, we had this and this and this. And she goes, what did they serve? Well, they had this with it. And what wine? We had a wine. And then the mother goes, okay, next course. Oh, the next course. It was the most adorable thing. I mean, as an American, we like food, but especially 35 years ago, Americans, I think, did not appreciate food to the degree that some people in Europe did, like the Germans. Clearly the Germans. It was so much fun. Actually, I will tell you another quick story, since we're in our fun hangout time. We had, I get there late at night. I flew in and whatever. Oh, I think I flew into Paris or something. I had to take a train from Paris to Hamburg. Whatever it was or Brussels. I didn't get to Hamburg until it was like 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. I was very tired. Get to Walter's house, and I'm exhausted, but I'm also starving. And his mom had come down to say hi really quick. She was going to bed, but she goes, I wasn't sure if you'd eaten. She had a bottle of chilled white wine from like a sweet, like a Gewürztraminer or something, like a sweet white wine, German wine, and some German black bread, some fresh, thick, moist German black bread, and fresh butter. And she had that for my snack. And I think they may have had some sausages or something else too. And that was my snack. And I sat there with this black bread, butter, because that's how we do it in Chicago. In the Midwest where I'm from, we're very big fans of butter on the bread with meat. They do that in southern France as well. It's a Midwestern American thing as well. And I still remember this day eating this with the cold, sweet white wine. Oh my God. And you're so exhausted from your trip with the wine sinking in, and you're just kind of like, oh God. I make bread, actually. I've got to find a good recipe for the German black bread. This reminded me like the one we get in the American stores. I forget what it's called, but it's that bread that's really, you can see the bulgur wheat in it. That little square sliced one from Europe that's very moist, like the bread looks almost wet. I forget what it's called, but we get that here, and I want to find a recipe. I mean, I make bread. I want to find a recipe for that. Potsdam? No. I've been to Potsdamer Platz, though. If that counts. I think that's what it was called in Berlin. But no, I've not traveled around Germany next. I've been to Berlin. I've been to East Berlin. I was in East Berlin when the wall was coming down. I was in East Berlin, December. It's a pumpernickel of sorts. Yeah, pumpernickel of sorts. I was in East Berlin in early December 2nd or 3rd of 1989. So it was right as the wall was coming down, but the wall was still there, but the wall had been opened so people could go back and forth. The East German troops were still guarding the wall. You know, we still had to go through Checkpoint Charlie. We were there on a delegation from the U.S. Congress, and there were still the U.S. troops there. There were still the East German troops. We went to a museum in East Berlin, and I was so upset because my Russian, I had studied Russian, but my Russian really is not good. And who do I meet? I'm in the basement of this museum, and this is now 1989, okay? So Eastern Europe is starting to become free, but the Soviet Union still exists. In the basement of the museum, I meet some Soviet soldiers, and they were visiting the museum too. And I mean, these guys almost died when they saw I was an American. And I mean, they were excited that I was an American because also we're in the basement of a museum where there's nobody else around, so they can actually talk to me. Because my experience meeting Soviets, especially military ones, was they really didn't want to be seen talking to Americans because they could get in trouble, but they really wanted to meet Americans. And it was, we sort of did what we could because I know a little bit of Russian and whatever. And I said, yeah, I'm here for work. I'm from Washington, papa. But it was really sad because they clearly wanted to speak and we couldn't. And it was just sad in a way because they were so excited. And it's just, anyway, I mean, a little bit of the humanity of the moment. But yeah, so and then we went to Leipzig when it was still East Germany. But I don't know Germany well beyond that. Bonn, I had to go to Bonn for work, but Berlin was wonderful. But I would almost say Berlin is what I know from Germany. And Leipzig, I mean, when it was still Soviet, whatever. But it was nice. I mean, it was just very Soviet. We had a lunch. The lunch was very Soviet. I remember Leipzig being very polluted, I want to say. We had this lunch in some very tall building on a square overlooking everything. And I just remember the sky was polluted. The sky was just dirty. But this was the Soviets and the East German communist government. They didn't care a lot about pollution back then, but what do you do? Yeah, I've got my piece of the wall. I'm going to show you again my favorite little thing that I collected from that trip. Oh, actually, hold on. I gotta see if I have my picture here. I think I do. Oh, I do have this here. I keep meaning to hang this picture, and I never do. Oops. I have dust on it. Well, first I'm going to show you. So this was my picture from me breaking off my piece of the Berlin Wall. This is 1989, December 3rd, I think, or 2nd, 2:00 in the morning. But what I was doing was there was a piece of reinforcing bar called rebar. It's the steel bar that goes through. I'm not wearing shorts today. No, it's the steel bar that goes through the cement to strengthen the cement. And there's a big piece of the bar that's sticking out from the cement. And cement, surprisingly, is very difficult to break. I mean, it's like breaking a piece of a sidewalk. I was very disappointed because getting pieces of the wall was incredibly difficult. Imagine trying to get a piece of a sidewalk. How do you do it? Well, get this. 1 second here. Trying to do this without destroying my apartment. So sticking out of the wall is this piece of rebar, reinforcing bar. I'm going to show this for TikTok too. So that's what that picture was. This is stuck in the wall, sticking out, and I just started bending it back and forth for 20 minutes until it took a chunk out of the wall, and then it broke off. So then I was like, oh my God, I think this is one of the most unique souvenirs I've seen of the Berlin Wall before. This is my piece of the Berlin Wall. I mean, I still have to figure out how to hang. I've got it in the corner. I have to figure out how to hang it without killing people because I'm a little afraid I'm going to like scratch someone and kill them. But I mean, is that not the coolest like Berlin? I like that it's a question mark too. That's my piece of the Berlin Wall. But hang on, putting this back carefully so it's not to scratch. But growing up during the era of the Soviet Union, the freedom of Eastern Europe means a lot to me. I got that through the airport because, thank God, I was traveling with a United States congressional delegation. I was working for a United States senator at the time. So when you do that, you fly with the military. And I kid you not, we arrive on the plane and we're all getting brought to the airport. Everyone was already on the plane to fly back to the States, and it's a U.S. military plane. I walk in and I'm carrying that thing. Everyone on the plane, first they started laughing, and immediately they were like, oh my God, because they realized what it was. And that I had the coolest souvenir ever from the Berlin Wall. So that's my Berlin. Whenever I go on the Antiques Roadshow, I'm bringing my Berlin Wall. The Antiques Roadshow is this cool American show that I'm sure they've got in Britain and everywhere else too, where basically they go to different towns and people bring all of their old stuff. And the guys look at it and figure out if it's something expensive or not. And very often they'll find some beautiful, like, oh, that was made by Tiffany, or, that was made by Dome in France or whatever. So I get to bring my piece of Berlin Wall. I would never get rid of it. I just have to hang it small part on top and hook on the bottom. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I had bought some hooks for it actually too. And I'm thinking, I've got a pole. My YouTube folks can see my pole. Here, I'll show my TikTok. Yep, there's my pole. I'm almost thinking of just putting it on the pole and putting it and just, again, it scares me a little bit because it's literally right next to the couch. I'm a little afraid it's going to fall and kill somebody, but I've got to put it up because it's next to my little thing now, but you can't see it. I've got to put it up. So yeah, I think it's going to probably just go on that pole because I like that it's sort of out there, and it's a little weird. But what I'm actually going to do is probably take that picture that I've got of me at the wall, put it next to it, I'm thinking, because that way they're together and somebody looks and goes, oh. And also it just makes it cool. It's like, oh my God, that's from the wall. Anyway, but it matters a lot to me. I really, the freedom of Eastern Europe meant a lot to me at the time. It does now, but it meant a lot to me at the time. I think if you're of a certain age, you get it. If you're young enough, you may not fully appreciate what it was like, But anyway. Yeah. Oh, I doubt it's worth a lot of money, but I mean, it's just I would never sell it anyway. I mean, I hope, it's one of those things where you hope when you die eventually that somebody in the family appreciates the history of it. Because I just want, somebody to have, it's history. I mean, touching it, I don't know. I like things like that. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got, Richard, what I've got is, Richard says I need a plaque or something to go with it that explains what it is. I've got the shadow box I showed you guys that just has my picture in it, breaking it off. What I need to do, and actually, I've got a couple big, I say big, it was very hard to get chunks of the wall. I've got chunks that are like this big. I mean, compared to my face. That's a pretty big chunk because it's cement. It just wouldn't break. So what I was going to do is put some of those chunks in the shadow box. I've got the picture in the shadow box. And I had even Googled I went and Googled the date because I knew the weekend was the first weekend in December. And I think it was like Friday, Saturday, December 2nd, December 3rd. So I know it was those days. And I need to just do a shadow box, and probably you're right, do a quick explanation with it. Exactly. Bring the photo if I go to Roadshow. Oh, yeah. But maybe put a quick explanation too, because it's one of those things where you never think of dying. So I haven't written out that explanation, but you worry that it's Igor again. Igor Mudry. There you go. Igor Mudry. Nice to meet you, Igor. Where are you from, Igor? I'm just curious because I saw your name the other day and I pronounced it because I studied Russian. So I'm assuming the other Slavic names that use the Cyrillic alphabet are pronounced the same right name. Igor is pretty obvious, but Mudry. Just curious where you're from, Igor. Let us know. Thank you for that, though. Anyway, yeah. So I love history. I mean, I love touching history. Your piece weighs 100 kilograms? Oh my God. Yanni says, oh my God. Or Johnny or Yanni. 100-kilogram piece of the Berlin Wall. Holy cow. That's 220 pounds. Oh my God. Your father worked there at the time. Oh my God. I mean, you can't imagine how your father did an amazing thing. You can't imagine. Oh, Ukrainian American in Sioux Falls. Oh, nice. That's funny. That's Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Funny. Because you used the Cyrillic, you had me fooled, although that clearly is a very ethnic name, so to speak, anyway. Mudri. Breaking off that cement was so freaking hard. It was so cool. Yeah, no, thank you guys. This is fun. I mean, this is like I said, like we kind of. All right, I will answer the Zelensky question, even though we try not to get too serious later in the day like this. Will Zelensky survive? I was thinking about this last night, and I've already said before when we've had these chats, I've said before that I think it would be smart of Putin not to try to kill Zelensky, although there are reports that Putin has already sent these Wagner, killers basically to try to kill Zelensky, and that they've thwarted them multiple times. I think it would be a huge mistake for him to kill Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, because he's developed such a hero status, not just among his own people, but with the rest of the world. One great way to convince NATO to get involved is killing Zelensky, potentially. And another great way to convince the Ukrainian people to be 100 times more pissed off than they already are, kill Zelensky. So that would be huge. And I was thinking about this last night, and I asked a military friend, and I haven't heard back yet, but I'm curious what he thinks. But it hit me last night, and I said, Sasha's good. She's in my bedroom resting at the moment. When she pops out again, I'll grab her if I can. Zelensky. It hit me last night, and I was like, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Kyiv, the capital, they've been talking about how the Russians or the Ukrainians are moving the Russians back, and because they're pushing the Russians further away north, the Russians are no longer in artillery range of Kyiv. So now they can't keep sending off those artillery shells just to kill people left and right like they were doing in the other towns, right? So Kyiv is a little bit more normal today than it's been for weeks, a little bit more calm. People are out again. And what it got me thinking is, okay, but you can use cruise missiles. And we know the Russians have been using air-launched cruise missiles to blow things up. They used them to blow up that training facility in Western Ukraine, the one that was only 15 miles, maybe 25 kilometers from the Polish border, where they had a bunch of the Western volunteers training. They used a cruise missile for that because they're very precise. Well, cruise missiles are typically what you'd use if you were bombing a country and wanting to, for example, destroy the Ministry of Defense, destroy the president's office, destroy, frankly, all the ministries if you're trying to destroy the country. Why hasn't Russia taken out the various Ukrainian ministries with cruise missiles? Now, again, anybody in the comments, if I'm wrong, correct me here, but I don't think that's happened. And my guess is, you tell me, but I don't think that's happened. My guess is that they're afraid of killing Zelensky. That's my guess. It just hit me last night, but I was like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Now, the other possibility is Putin wanted to take Kyiv and put his puppet in place. And maybe the whole idea was to, don't touch Kyiv, because he'd almost be able to. Here's the thought. Putin thinking, no, I'm going to destroy the rest of the country, but Kyiv we're not going to touch. We're going to put our puppet in power, our guy who's not, who's pro-Russian, and we're not going to destroy anything because we're going to show that truly somebody said intercepted, that could be true, that truly we are the friends of the Ukrainians and we liberated them, Now, the other thing is, as somebody just said on TikTok, some of the missiles have been intercepted, and that's true too, but I cannot believe that the Ukrainians intercepted every missile, every cruise missile. No way. Some of them had to get through. Oh, lovely seeing you guys today too. So who knows? But it makes, I'm just a little suspicious as to why they wouldn't. The vice president, Mika asks who would take over the presidency if the vice president, if the president dies. Ukraine's going to have a whole rules for like the U.S. In the U.S., if the president dies, the vice president immediately becomes president by law. So Ukraine's going to have the same thing. There's a deputy prime minister or president. He's president, right? There's got to be a vice president as well. And it just depends on what Ukrainian law is, what the Constitution says. But I guarantee you, the Ukrainian Constitution already spells out exactly what happens if somebody dies. So I'm not worried about that. The big question is it smart or not for Putin to try to kill Zelensky? I think it would be very stupid of Putin to try to kill Zelensky. And again, not to get into too much more substance, because this is now our Сегодня завтра, for today or tomorrow, exactly. But I'd rather be like the Ukrainians. Oh, interesting. What do the Ukrainians say? Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I know Сегодня завтра because I studied Russian. Ukrainian завтра. So you just say завтра, but you say Svogodny? Svogodny? Is that right? Svogodny? Tell me if I'm saying this right, Casey, or anybody else who speaks Ukrainian. Is that how you say for Сегодня today? Is it sv? I'm guessing the little b was a b. I always forget. My favorite word in Russian is bila, because I always like saying bila, bila. The ui. Always my favorite. Bila. Well, somebody can tell me what the correct pronunciation is Svogodny. Svogodny. Yeah, it's funny hearing the Ukrainian, because I don't know enough Russian even, but it's interesting to see the word differences, because it is true when I hear a Russian speaker, there are certainly more words and phrases I hear. Because like I'll hear, it's funny. You remember like the basic vocabulary, like slushets, or like I said, like bila, or eat hachu, you hear a lot. But I think the Ukrainians must use that too. Hachu, for I want, ya hachu. So there's words that are clearly the same, but there's a lot of words. I'll just hear Ukrainian and I go, okay, it's like when I hear Polish that I know, well, Polish especially, I know is some other language that is Eastern European, but I can at least tell that it's not Russian. I mean, because at least Russian, there's enough word. I know it's very different, Polish from Russian, but there's enough words different. But anyway, who knows? Russian always interested me, but I'm not going to learn it now. I may learn Ukrainian now just for fun, because I would love to go there. Oh, that's true. I didn't think of course, Google Translate. Yeah, I should go to Google Translate just for the, I wasn't thinking of it for the speaking of it. Actually, you know what is great too? Duolingo is a fabulous free app for the phone and the iPad. Duolingo. I love it. I've used it to keep up on my French, Italian, Spanish, even the Greek, because my Greek is a little rusty. I'm almost afraid of using it for Ukrainian, because I'm almost afraid with the Russian I've got that I'm going to totally get confused what's Russian and what's, although if I ever go back to Russia, it would probably be very funny if I used Ukrainian words. That would probably be the ultimate in, maybe that's our schadenfreude again, but that would be like the ultimate experience. Accidentally using Ukrainian words in Russian. Oops. Kyiv is being attacked again. Oh, that's interesting. Well, Biden said to you, Duolingo, fantastic app. Biden said today actually that he didn't trust Putin, and he said when they said, "Oh, do you think Putin's telling the truth that he's going to stop going after Kyiv now and only focus on the east?" And Biden said something like, "I don't trust him. I wouldn't trust what he says." So that's the thing. We shouldn't trust that. And yeah, Strong Life from Hamburg. Supposedly the Russian missiles have got a 60% failure rate, and the experts are saying anything over 20% is again, don't drag me into the substance again. I'm going to sign off soon, actually. But anything over 20% is horrible, and the Russian missiles are failing at a rate of 60%, which is horrific, absolutely horrific. So craziness. So all right, guys. You know what? We're almost at the 2-hour mark. I'm going to go. I'm getting a little headache too. I think it was because I didn't eat. Well, I had lunch, but my lunch was sushi, and sushi. I like sushi, but it's the kind of thing that fills you up, but doesn't really fill you up. So, and I may even be bad and make some chocolate chip cookies as my second lunch. I like my desserts. What can I say? All right, guys, I'm going to sign off because we're almost at 2 hours. See, this is what I like, though, is we've got the core group. And I mean, on TikTok, especially, we've still got 1,000 people on TikTok just hanging out. Now, mind you, 999 of them might be Russians. Who knows? But honestly, if you're Russian being paid to attack us chatting about chocolate and cookies, I'd love you to waste your money doing that. No, thank you guys. I appreciate all of you guys. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern time US. That's 1,300 hours. So that's 1 p.m. Washington, D.C. time tomorrow. We'll do this again. That's, I always say, 1700 UTC. But again, 1 p.m. Washington, D.C. is the easiest way to remember. You can just check wherever you are and compare the time zones there. But I'll be back, and we'll do the same thing. We go for an hour, hour 15, usually hour 15, and then we hang out and chat afterwards. All right, guys? All right, I'm going to log off because, like I said, I need to, relax now. My head's getting tired. But and still feeling pretty good, my little surgery thing. It's annoying, though. It's been a week. The congestion's a little better, but I'm still very tired. Zavtra, azavtra. or would you say zavtra? Would you put the v for tomorrow? Nazavtra? I'm not sure what you would say for until tomorrow. Somebody tell me really quick. How would you say until tomorrow in Ukrainian or Russian? Izavtra? I don't remember my articles anymore or my prepositions or whatever it is. Dazavtra. It is dazavtra. Okay, dazavtra, everybody. Dazavtra. Dazavira. Oh, dazavtra, you're right. Yeah, dazavtra. Dazavtra. Okay, dazavtra. Очень хорошо. And I think that's the other thing, too. For очень, you may use a different word in Ukraine as well. I remember somebody saying really, I think it was I am going to sign off after this. And thank you, the mods. Somebody just thanked the mods, and you are right. Thank you, moderators. Again, but for Zelensky was saying really, I don't speak any Armenian, no, was saying really a lot, and it was being translated in a word that wasn't очень, because очень was the word I learned. Like for очень хорошо. Or очень for very, maybe, than really. Maybe very. Yeah, очень, but I don't remember if they say that, though. Anyway, guys, all right. Okay, guys, I see you guys tomorrow. All right. Hasta mañana. All right, TikTokers, I'm saying goodbye. And again, thank you for all those gifts. You TikTokers are fabulous. Boom. Hanging up on TikTok. Goodbye, TikTok. Boom. Okay, and you all on YouTube as I squint at you. Thanks, guys. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock Eastern US. See you then. All right. Bye-bye.